Hey, everybody, welcome to a special edition of Silver and Black today, live during the NFL draft. The Raiders pick is coming up. We were going to do the reaction right after, but with what has happened, 6 quarterbacks in the first 12 picks of this draft, the Raiders don't have many quarterback options, so you know it's not going to be in the first round that they take a quarterback. If they take one at all, offensive line, obviously cornerback are a position of need. Talise Fuaga is who I think, and I know Mo, we've been talking about for days. That's where we thought that the Raiders would go. And now they're that's their options. I mean, what else could you do? Terrion Arnold, maybe. But if you look at this situation, Mo, really just staggering to see Penix go to the Falcons, and the Raiders pick is in. So it's coming up here. So we will do it, and we'll talk about the rest of the stuff in a second here. But Mo, you still thinking Fuaga here? I'm thinking Fuaga.
Yeah, I'm thinking Fuaga or Faltanu. Because I think they just, to me, when you have a strong defensive line or strong defensive front, cornerback need kind of drops a little for me, because if you have a strong defensive line, it makes the job easier for the guys on the back end. So not so much worried about cornerback with Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Malcolm Kuhn, Tyree Wilson coming along on the front end. So offensive line to me is the way to go. Protect whoever's going to be the quarterback for the Raiders is going to need some protection.
Yeah, Fashanu went to the Jets. Right. And so, I mean, there's still great offensive linemen on the board, as you said. I mean, this is really interesting.
Wow. Brock Bowers.
What?
Brock Bowers to the Raiders. Brock
Stop.
Bowers, buddy. Brock Bowers.
Okay, folks. Stop.
Oh
my TV must be behind yours because it hasn't come up on mine.
Oh, my gosh. Brock Bowers to the Raiders. Shout out to Brandy Lopez that's in the chat. Shout out to you for joining us early. Brock Bowers to the Raiders. Brandy's not happy that the Raiders didn't trade up.
Wait a minute here.
My gosh.
I don't know what to say, Mo. What do you say?
Stunned. I'm stunned. Like, Brock Bowers is a good prospect, but you got Michael Mayer, so are they 2 tight end sets with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers?
Listen, I just don't know what to say, because I was not only is my draft piece on Fuaga halfway done for Sportsnaut.
Wow.
Raiders
fans, what do you think about this?
I know. I got to hear what Raiders fans are saying about this.
What do you think about this? Brock Bowers is a great prospect, but not a need. They went true BPA on this one.
They did.
So for all the people who say BPA, this was BPA for the Raiders. Brock Bowers.
Wow.
I'm stunned.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what to say, man. Because it's
So what the offense is gonna look like? You're gonna have Brock Bowers and Michael Mayer in 2 tight end sets. Now let's remember that Brock Bowers is a smaller tight end than the most pro tight ends. So they're probably gonna use Brock Bowers as a wide receiver type or a receiving type tight end, where he's gonna be on the field basically as an oversized wide receiver. And then you're going to have Michael Mayer as probably your traditional tight end, and then you're going to have Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams at wide receiver traditionally. But, wow, talk about a shocker. Raiders drafting Brock Bowers at 13.
I mean, I don't care how many bingo cards I would have had. Brock Bowers was nowhere near. And it goes to show you, as we talked about on BPA, the show. Yeah, BPA, exactly. And that's what's crazy.
This is 100% BPA pick, because tight end's probably the last thing you're thinking about. One of the last positions you're thinking about in the first round.
Well, you need an offensive line, but maybe because they're not eyeing a quarterback now. They're thinking they got to give the quarterbacks more weapons. I don't know. And I know I see somebody in there saying he's a good pick, but we need it in other areas.
And I agree. That's L. Brown Holio. I agree. Yeah. Brock Bowers, by the way, best tight end in the draft.
No question.
Easily.
Great player.
And easily a top prospect in this class. But when you're thinking about the Raiders' needs, you could get Brock Bowers the ball. He could do great things with the football, but the quarterback needs protection.
Wow.
The quarterback needs to be protected to get the ball to Brock Bowers, to get the ball to Devontae Adams. Now, what this could tell a lot of Raider fans too, is that they may really believe that Thayer Munford as being their right tackle.
Could be.
Because who knows now, in the second round, they can do a number of things. They can go cornerback, they can go guard, who knows what the Raiders are going to do in the second round? But this is telling you that if Thayer Munford winds up being the guy at right tackle, they're okay with it.
Yeah, and Mo, the thing here too is it's not that I don't think he's a good player, because Brock Bowers is amazing.
He's amazing,
but he's an amazing player. Now, to me though, it just goes back to, I get best player available, so that's why I'm not saying this isn't Cleve Farrell, right? This isn't one of those crazy picks.
No.
But when you look at need, it's nowhere near. I mean, unless they don't believe in Michael Mayer enough to think that he's that guy. But even so, tight end, like people had Brock Bowers as a number 1 round tight end. I mean, a lot of people thought maybe the Chargers would do that. Chargers go Joe Alt, great pick for them. But you look at this, and it's like it's like not a bad or a good feeling. It's kind of like a what feeling.
It's not.
And I'm not doing it like the fans that are on chatting with us now. I'm seeing it all over. And like Mark Bernius says, Pierce going old school, hard-nosed football, run jumbo two tight end sets. Absolutely.
That's what I said.
But who's going to block on the right side? I mean,
MPG says we can't have one. MPG says, can't we have one draft with no surprises? I'm sorry, MPG. I'm sorry, but
it's true.
Raiders and draft surprises go together like peanut butter and jelly at this point.
Oh my God. Like, that's the thing too. And again, I'm not looking at this from a fan perspective. I'm looking at it as somebody who covers the Raiders. You and I talk about them all week, every week. And you could have asked me, what's the wildest thing that could happen? Okay, they take Michael Penix at 13, or they move up and take Michael Penix, or that. I could believe that. But a tight end, I mean, I'm already looking forward to the press conference to have them explain what it was. It just
what Scott, as someone in the chat said, what they're going to tell you is we're going to go jumbo size. Mm-hmm. We're going to have 2 tight ends on the field most of the time, and we're going to have 2 wide receivers on the field.
Right.
And
to your point about Mumford.
And as I said, Brock Bowers, in my opinion, will be used as an oversized wide receiver. Now, ideally, he'll be labeled a tight end. But as I said, he has a skill set to be basically a big wideout, and that's going to be his role. I think Michael Mayer would be more the traditional tight end. But the other thing about this is now, when you go to the second round and you talk about, okay, so now you might want to start thinking about your actual needs. In the second round.
And does it maybe are they working on something to get another second rounder to address some of those needs? Are they looking to maybe move up since they couldn't move up in the first round? And clearly I had a feeling the quarterback run, the only big surprise there for me was just when the Falcons took Penix. Not that I think Penix is a bad player, but as I said to you, I think I texted you, Kirk Cousins got a 4-year deal. If he plays through that deal, and I've always said Michael Penix's age didn't bother me if he's going to come in and compete for a starting job. But if he's going to sit on the bench for 4 years, he's 28 years old by the time he even plays. That's what's weird to me with that one. So I know we're talking about
the Michael Penix deal was odd, but good for him. I'm glad he's a top 8. He's a top 8. As for the Raiders, but
yes.
So the Raiders
and Rock Raider, our good buddy John Davis says once Denver drafted Knicks, we went BPA. Clearly. I mean,
clearly.
Hey, MDM. Yeah, there's no other explanation for it. And again, it's not like they obviously took a bad player. I mean, so
this is not a good player. Right. This is not a reach where you say this guy should have been drafted 28th.
Right. Exactly.
This is a player on a lot of people's boards over at Bleacher Report, my company that I write for and speak for. We have Brock Bowers as, I believe, a top 5 prospect overall in the class. Mm-hmm. So I think this is one of those situations where the player is so good that you just don't pass up on him while you're on the clock. Like he's gonna if you talk to any draft analyst, Bleacher Report, Pro Football Focus, anywhere, they would have told you that, Brock Bowers is going to be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro player at some point. Yeah. So if you can get an All-Pro player at 13, it's a win. Now, does it address a need? No. But are you getting a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player? And the answer for a lot of people would be yes, you are.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of now you have to now it's on Luke Getsy to be creative to get him on the field.
Yeah, and I look at it, and I'm looking at the fans' reaction here in our chat across different channels. Some people very upset. Some people are like, "Hey, okay, he's the best player available." And I think he would have had that no matter, by the way, who it was. This was a shocker. because it was a tight end. And
Right.
yes, so you now look at out of the Raiders' the last 2 years, number 1, number 2 round picks, they've taken 2 tight ends in the first round. And again, Brock Bowers, a lot of people had him going to the Chargers at
As
5.
high as 5. Yep.
Yeah. So most people had him as a top 10 pick. That shows you how good he is. But
Right.
again, I understand. Look, I mean, I'm still trying to come to grips with it because I get BPA. But at the same time, BPA versus the need. Yeah. Wow. It's just interesting. I mean,
And
they need
Fuaga
help on offense. We were talking about wide receivers, right?
Yes. And
To New
Fuaga
Orleans.
goes right after
To New Orleans.
to the Saints.
Yeah.
Fuaga goes right after to the New Orleans Saints, Scott. Right after.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So,
Oh man. But like I said, it's the explanation here, the logical explanation here is BPA. We understand that. As I said, if you could get a Pro Bowl, All-Pro potential player at 13, it's a win. But the other side of the coin is, you better hope your protection is good. Because if your protection is not good, it doesn't matter who's catching the ball on the other side. The ball doesn't get to them because your quarterback is getting sacked 45 times.
Right.
So that's the other part of this. So the Raiders, now that they got Brock Bowers, okay, just make sure you have a plan for the offensive line to get that quarterback some protection. That's it.
And Mo, the other thing though too is, again, now you're in a position as well where you are, and unless something crazy happens in the second half, and I know some people are going to chime in because they love Spencer Rattler, okay? But I'm going to tell you that I think that this clearly signals, and look, what happened above them, you can't control that all the quarterbacks went. So to me, it tells me that your quarterback room, they're going to add another veteran or maybe an undrafted free agent, but your quarterback room is your quarterback room next year, folks. So you're going to have Gardner Minshew competing with Aiden O'Connell probably for the starting job, and it is what it is. Now, obviously, a lot of these teams tells you a lot about what they think of the 2025 quarterback class with all of them 6 quarterbacks going in the first 12 rounds or 12 picks. That tells you what they think of next year. The Raiders now have to wait to next year. Now, you don't need 12 quarterbacks. I mean, if the Raiders like one of the top 2 guys, there's at least 2 or 3 guys next year that are I think top guys. People talking about Jordan Travis later round. Yeah, those guys, and we've talked about Jordan Travis, but those aren't the guys that are going to come in and start right away and be a franchise quarterback. You don't see it happen that often. Okay, spare me the Brock Purdy stuff. It happens once in a lifetime. What I'm saying though is now he definitely drafted the value over the need. But the question then becomes, and I keep seeing it in the chat here, there's too many of them to call out one person, but does it get you further down the line towards becoming a playoff team and where you want to be in that division with Brock Bowers?
My main takeaway is the Brock Bowers pick will be fine if the Raiders have a good plan for their offensive line. Because like I said, if the offensive line is not protecting the quarterback, it doesn't matter who you draft as a pass catcher.
Yeah.
If the ball can't get to them. Now, if the Raiders have a good plan for their offensive line, it would make this Brock Bowers pick look good because, okay, so now you got Devontae Adams, arguably best wide receiver in the league, right? Then you drafted the best tight end in this draft class who's expected to be an elite pass catcher at his position. Right. Jacoby Myers had a pretty good year as a wide receiver too last year. So you have the elite playmakers on the perimeter. Now we need to see what the plan is for the offensive line.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I think I see somebody in here talking about, hey, we didn't need that. It's an awful pick. Mike Toro, thanks for watching, buddy. We appreciate it. It's not an awful pick. It's an unusual pick because of what the need is, but you can go argue back and forth on drafting need versus drafting BPA, best player available. And there's good arguments on both sides. So Mike might come back and have a good argument and say, look, you need this. I understand it, and I'm not going to disagree with it because clearly, yes, if you would have taken Fuaga there, if you would have taken Terrion Arnold there, I would have had no problem. That or Penix were the 3 picks I was expecting. So either way they would have gone, I would have been like, okay, got it, all good, whatever. Right. But now you're looking at the situation, and I see people saying, well, now the offense is going to be really good. And I say, sort of. I think that can be true. But the quarterback position, I don't care what anybody says, it's unsettled still. And number two is if that offensive line, even in the jumbo 2 tight end sets, Mo, you still need to have competency there on that right side at guard and tackle.
And that's been my main point is on paper, yes, the offense looks good because of what you have on a perimeter. But let's remember the engine of the offense, unless you have, is either a top-notch quarterback or an elite offensive line. Because if you have an elite offensive line, it can uplift your quarterback and everything else along with it. If you have an elite quarterback, he can mask a lot of your weaknesses and deficiencies on offense.
Yeah.
Raiders don't have an elite quarterback right now.
Right.
Their offensive line is still kind of TBA. Who's the starting right guard? Who's the starting right tackle? And like I said, with this pick, it tells me that they have at least an ounce of faith that maybe Thea Mumford could be the guy at right tackle. I want to get to a comment Edward Sharp in the chat made. Shout out to Edward in the chat. Good follower, always supports the show. He asks basically, do I see the Raiders trading up in the first round after this pick? And I think it's more likely that the Raiders trade down now and get more picks so that they can fill some of their needs versus trading up and giving up picks and having fewer picks to, again, address your needs. So I see the Raiders more as a trade down candidate on day 2 than a trade up candidate, because they're going to probably add a pick or two, in my opinion, so that they can address their needs at cornerback, on the offensive line. They need depth at linebackers. I said in a recent piece on Sportsnet, the Raiders only have one linebacker under contract after the season.
Yeah.
And it's Amari Burney, who they drafted in the 6th round last year. So they need depth at certain positions. They obviously have needs like every other team in the league. So, Edward, to your question, I could see them trading down, not up, to get more picks to address those needs.
Absolutely. And it's interesting here too, because, we talked about the need for wide receiver on offense, which I think they will go deeper in the draft. And yes, it's a very deep, listen, I was already settled on Fuaga, right? I thought that's what they would, that's just what I thought they would do.
He goes to the pick right after.
He goes to the pick right after to protect Derek Carr, by the way.
My God.
But you look at this and you say, okay, so this is what you're going to do on the offensive line. And we don't know. There might be other things coming. We don't know. Other deals might happen, not just in the draft, but there might be an opportunity for them to pick up other people somewhere. But it's a deep draft. Somebody said it, and we've been saying it all week, right, on the show, which was it's a deep offensive lineman draft. So you can get a good one in the second round. So with pick number 44, if they stay at 44, don't move up or whatever, you can still get a very good offensive lineman there who can start for you first year in the NFL. That's how deep it was at tackle. Now, of course, it's not the Fuaga level and the freakish size and ability he had, but still you're going to get a good player. So don't forget that a second round offensive lineman this year could in some years be a low end first rounder. So I think that, you can't get caught up too much in that. You shouldn't panic so much from the shock. And the Raiders always seem to shock in the first round. It always just seems it doesn't matter who the GM is.
Do they?
Yeah, whoo. But again, Brock Bowers. Oh, guys, but I think your point about the offense too is, and I see a lot of things. Oh, we can still get Spencer Rattler. Oh, what about Jordan Davis? Those are guys. I have no problem with them taking them later in the draft. But again, that doesn't address your need. That is a long shot to find a franchise quarterback. You're not going to find a franchise quarterback that way. 99 out of 100, and 99.9% out of 100 times, you're not going to do it. So that's it. Now people are asking, Unholy Roller, Frankie is saying Brady coming back.
Got his Gronk. Oh, got 2 Gronks for you, Brady, if you want to come back.
Maybe that's why they
took
Bowers.
2 Gronks for you if you want to come back, Brady.
Uh-oh. Maybe that's why they took Bowers, Mo.
Let's start the rumor. Got 2 Gronks for you, Brady. If you want to come back at 58 years old, we got you with 2 tight ends.
Latout of the Colts. That's a good one.
Really quick, I will say, if the Raiders do go tackle in the second round, some of the guys that could be available, Kingsley Suamatae.
Oh yeah.
At a BYU is a guy I think could be available, if the Chiefs don't take him with the last pick, because the Chiefs have been rumored to want an offensive lineman, offensive tackle. Kingsley Suamatae would be probably my top of the line for me at tackle. Also, if you want maybe a Roger Rosengarten, yes, I believe it was player. Albert Breer said that Roger Rosengarten could go a lot earlier than people think. So maybe he goes second round. I had him as an early third round pick, so maybe the Raiders consider him. Also,
Yep.
another dog coming out of Washington. Tropical Remy. 2 Gronks, baby. That's my line for tonight. Brady, we got 2 Gronks for you out here. If you want to come back at 68 years old, we got you. 2 Gronks at tight end.
Dark Side 209, which I'm assuming is he's in Fresno, the Central Valley. Bowers is more of a Hernandez, right? Since he doesn't block.
He blocked well
blocks.
at Georgia, but the question is, can he block well at his size on the pro level? And that's been the question. And can he be a complete tight end on the pro level at his size? Because he's about in the 240s. Some scouts have said he's not going to be any bigger than 245. We'll see how he does. Yep. He has the mentality for it, but can his body hold up on the pro level against bigger bodies as a complete tight end? But as I said, in his first year, the Raiders are most likely going to use Michael Mayer as the traditional tight end, and Brock Bowers would be your pass-catching tight end, a.k.a. just an oversized wide receiver.
Right. And it's funny because Bowers, I think, is one of those guys. I mean, you look at his numbers and you look at the projections, amazing. Like, look, he's an amazing player. That's the thing. It's like, here's the key is, again, are you going to be able to use him to the best of his ability? And do you have the pieces around him to be able to leverage it and to use it? That's the key. And I still have question marks. A lot of people going in, because you have Jacoby Myers has a nice year, because you have people are excited about Turner in the slot, people are excited Devontae Adams, people excited Michael Mayer, but that offense did nothing last year. They had those guys, and they had Aiden O'Connell. Now they had moments. Don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing them completely in the garbage here, but there's a long way to go there. So I think that there has to be some opportunity here to understand what they're doing. I think the second round pick now, when we get there tomorrow, we'll have a better understanding of what they're thinking. But there's still some great players that have not been taken off the board in the first round that have fallen in the first round because the quarterback market. And Mo, didn't we say this a couple weeks ago that the quarterbacks, and I talked to a couple draft analysts for Sportsnaut this week, including Thor Nystrom, who's right now crying because he got his J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. But you look at it, and I said, you know what? It's weird in drafts. You say a quarterback, well, he's a bottom of the first round, second round quarterback, and these teams get nervous, man. They get crazy. So quarterbacks start going. Suddenly, Bo Nix is going number 12 in the first round when most people had him in the late 30s. That's how it goes in the draft. It's so weird that these guys who know football better than you and I could ever know it, Mo, get caught up in the, me too. And that's what happened. It's nuts.
It's nuts. It's funny. I was just jotting down some of the comments in the chat. Mike Contreras basically says doom and gloom for a lot of Raiders bloggers. And I don't think, again, if you're just joining us right now, I don't think the Raiders made a bad pick. This isn't a reach pick where you're taking a player who should have been a second rounder at 13. It's just a pick that didn't address their needs. It is pure BPA at this point.
Correct.
Again, if you're asking yourself, did the Raiders pick a player that could be a Pro Bowl or All-Pro player within the first 5 years on his rookie contract? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Ask anybody. Ask your top draft analysts out there.
You're seeing the
they'll
reaction.
Tell you that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
They'll
tell you that Brock Bowers has Pro Bowl, All-Pro potential.
No question.
That's the good side about it. That the Raiders get a player who has Pro Bowl, All-Pro potential on their roster. Sorry, Scott, but the other side of it is, they eventually have to start addressing their needs. And I get the other side of it why people are disappointed because they felt the Raiders had a massive need on the offensive line or at cornerback, and they want the Raiders to address their needs. And we understand that part of it too. But at the same time, it's like not a bad pick.
No.
It's a surprising pick.
Surprising. And surprising, not in a bad way. See, Jay Smooth up on X, who's watching us live on X, the pick just leaves me feeling indifferent, not happy or unhappy about it. And that's
right.
As a non-fan, that's how I kind of felt when we got on the air, right? I was like, when you said Brock Bowers, I thought you were joking. I really did.
No.
And so you see that, and here's Dave S. too watching us up on the YouTubes. Bowers is not bad, just not the BPA at the position of need we have. So yes, that's absolutely correct.
Exactly.
It's sort of like, in some ways, I know this is going to be a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison, but it's the Falcons taking Penix. You got a quarterback. Now, the Raiders don't have a all-pro tight end who is all-world like a Tony Gonzalez or somebody like that, but it's in that same realm because you're like, wait a minute. The Falcons needed defense, man. They needed defense bad. and they took a quarterback at number 8.
Ooh.
So you get it, and I think that a lot of the reaction here is the same. Dr. Matt King here says, not bad, but a tad stupid.
That's stupid.
I love this. Then I got to get to some of these comments. Fuaga, though, yes.
Fuaga, though?
I
pick
agree.
right. Fuaga was the pick right after.
Yes. And then and it says, Jeff Stanley says, at least we finally didn't reach for a convict or a third rounder no one's heard of before. Hey, look, they didn't reach for any convicts. You know, the Ruggs thing happened after.
Scott.
Oh, Arnett, yeah. I forgot about him. Maybe I try to forget about him. But okay, so here's Jordan Ford, a longtime viewer. But that's not the point. It's not BPA position of need. It's one or the other, and they chose BPA.
And they chose BPA.
They did.
They chose BPA.
So now it's Tom Telesco's first draft with the Raiders, right, Mo? And you did a great piece. I told everybody to read. Hopefully, everybody read it about his history as a GM. I don't know that I've seen him do a pick like this per se, where it was just BPA and they didn't have the need, so to speak. I'm trying to think back to your story on the Charger picks that he made.
Well, if you look at last year's draft, they chose a wide receiver, Quentin Johnson, out of TCU.
Yeah.
That wasn't their biggest need. I mean, I understand Mike Williams and Keenan Allen get hurt a lot.
Yeah.
But they still had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the roster at the time. And wide receiver wasn't their biggest need, but they went with a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So technically, Quentin Johnson last year with Telesco wasn't their strongest BPA pick.
Now, Jose's not happy. He says Tom Telesco had one job to do and he screwed it up. Jose, I get your feeling there, man. I just don't know that that's true, because had he drafted somebody you never heard of, okay, I would be there with you. Mike B on YouTube, Kelsey 2.0. You know what? There's some fair comparison there, Mo. If you look at the type of player they are and their ability to route run and their ability to disrupt the defense from that position, if you watch the film of Georgia, Brock Bowers, I'm not saying he's going to be Travis Kelce 2.0. I'm just saying, though, he's got that same kind of build, that same kind of game.
This is the kind of pick, and I'm not trying to sit on the fence here, but this is the kind of pick where you kind of have to wait and see, because two things here. As I said, if the Raiders don't have a good plan for the offensive line, you could have Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, and Tyreek Hill at wide receiver. It won't matter if you can't get them the ball.
Or if your quarterback doesn't play well.
Right. And number two, I want to know, and we won't know this until the game start, what is the plan to have Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers on the field? Is there a plan to have them on the field a lot at the same time? Are you going to use Brock Bowers as a wide receiver? I want to know what Luke Getsy's plan is for having two tight ends who were drafted high in their respective draft classes. Michael Mayer in the second round, early second round that you traded up for it. I know not the Tom Telesco regime, but the previous regime. And now Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and maybe, Mo, they're tipping their hand on what they're going to do offensively, like you said. Jose, still bitter, saying bring back Mayock. Jose, I'll remind you of Damon Arnett. I'll remind you of Jonathan Abram. I'll remind you of the War Daddy, if you remember the War Daddy.
Tanner Muse,
all these
baby.
Things. Tanner Muse, right?
Baby.
And then here's Dave says Fuag was one of the best players available at the position of need, and he was there to pick. But see, you're kind of conflating both of those, because Brock Bowers universally, and I guess all experts, you like some experts, you don't like others. But I would say I didn't see one draft prediction, Mo, where Bowers wasn't in the top 10.
I will say this. I did a fun Bleacher Report live yesterday. And in the draft, Brock Bowers fell out of the top 10. And the Broncos person before me took Brock Bowers. And that was the BPA pick.
Yeah.
Now, I started thinking about it, and I was like, if Brock Bowers falls to me as a Raiders guy, do I consider taking him? Because he's easily the best tight end of the class. And I will say this, too. I wrote a Bleacher Report. I wrote an article on Bleacher Report, and I said that Brock Bowers would fall out of the top 10 simply because he plays tight end. It's a non-premium position, and some teams may see him as a luxury pick. And there are a lot of fans in the chat right now that saw Brock Bowers as a luxury pick that the Raiders didn't need.
Yeah.
And they should have went offensive line or cornerback. And I understand that part of it.
Yep.
So for the people saying it's a bad pick, I understand where you're coming from.
Yep.
But again, I want to reiterate this. If you asked most draft analysts of the players in this draft class, who are the prospects who had the highest potential to be a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player? A lot of them would have told you Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Byron Murphy went to the Seahawks, by the way. Good spot for him, actually. That's a great spot for him when you look at that. But yeah, and I think that it's OC Kane, Telesco, and AP and the Raiders are sucking it up right now. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good comment or a bad.
That's a bad
That's a
comment.
bad comment. Like sucking up, dude. He's a good player. Like I know. I get the shock of it's not a need. Okay.
It's very Scott. It's very easy for the people who are just joining us in chat. It's very easy to understand. On one hand, Brock Bowers looked at as an elite prospect. On the other hand, the Raiders didn't really need a tight end. Not saying they didn't need an elite player, but they didn't need a tight end. And a lot of people were expecting them to address their needs, and they didn't. They went BPA. That's what it boils down to.
My boy Vinny, I'm going to call you Vincenzo because that's my Italian background. So Vinny says Raiders made the right move. Brock is a freak of nature. Absolutely. He will make life so much easier for the quarterback. He's tough, fast, hard to go down. He's elite. Mayer will block more. See, so this is a great point, Vinny, because I do believe you're not settled at quarterback. You have Aiden O'Connell, who's pretty much a statue. I like the guy. Again, he's a good quarterback. You have Gardner Minshew, a good, what I would say, 1A2 quarterback, a guy who can come in and win you games. He's got a little more functional mobility, right? Not a lot, but he's better at that. He can move around the pocket. He can create outside the pocket a little bit. But they're both not gifted a number one franchise quarterback. So, to your point, Mo, you're going to have the idea that the Raiders are going to go big time vertical, I don't think is going to happen. They'll go vertical when they need to, but I think you're going to see, especially with Luke Getsy's West Coast based offense, it's a lot of short passes. And to me, again, this points at scheme fit and the fact that you don't have a quarterback yet that is the guy who's going to lead you to the promised land per se. I'm not saying these guys can't lead them to the playoffs, Mo, but what Vinny said here makes a lot of sense because they're going to need a lot of outlet passes. They're going to need a lot of stuff over the middle, short routes underneath. And what better guy would you need in this draft than Brock Bowers to throw the ball? And my guess is if you're in a fantasy league, grab Brock Bowers because let me tell you something, he's going to get a crap load of passes this year.
What I will say about Brock Bowers is that he fits the Raider mentality under Antonio Pierce. Tough, hard nose, punch you in the mouth type of deal. Of course, I expected an offensive lineman to play up to that mentality, but Brock Bowers certainly fits the mold. And again, as I said, assuming he gets on the field, he does have Pro Bowl All-Pro potential. And that's the good side about it. You can't say no to a good and a top-notch prospect. It's just the fact now, like I said, the question for me is Luke Getsy creative enough to get him the football and get him on the field?
Yes, that's the key. Jose had asked that tight ends in the first round don't do so well. Well, let's look at that. Kyle Pitts from Atlanta. He's had some struggles because of Atlanta. TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, Hayden Hurst, OJ Howard, Evan Ingram, Eric Ebron, Tyler Eifert. Those guys all did pretty well. I'm not saying they're all Hall of Famers. You had Greg Olson in the first round, Heath Miller, Kellen Winslow the second. We won't go there. Dallas Clark, Jeremy Shockey. I mean, you go on and on. Todd Heap did really well for a short period of time as too. So I don't think that it's necessary. I mean, you can go through any position in the NFL, Mo, and find guys that went in the first round that didn't do so well. So I don't know that we can make that blanket statement. Tony Ryland, a longtime viewer too, totally unexpected, but brilliant. He'll be a nightmare for opposing defenses and improves our quarterback room indirectly. That's an interesting take about the quarterback.
Oh yeah, Sam LaPorta was a second rounder. My bad. He said first rounder.
First rounder, yeah.
Yeah, first round.
And yes, Raider 1961 says looks like Mumford's starting tackle, perhaps.
And that's that's what I said was to me. This pick also told me that the Raiders, if Dan Mumford winds up being the starting right tackle, they're okay with that. Yeah. That doesn't mean I still think they will draft a tackle on day 2. Wait. Kevin Ritzel says the look on most faces transparent. Raiders fans trying to talk ourselves into that was a good first round pick. And here's the thing. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad pick. It was a surprising pick. Surprising pick. Good, top-notch prospect. Surprising pick because of what the Raiders had on their roster. Now, if Michael Mayer wasn't on the roster, people would say, okay, I get it. But because Michael Mayer is on the roster, you traded up last year to get him. The previous regime, not the Tom Telesco regime, the previous regime traded up for Michael Mayer. You're asking yourself, okay, how are we going to use these tight ends? And that's why I said this is a type of pick that you have to kind of wait and see how the Raiders use him. Is he going to be strictly a pass-catching tight end? Are they going to use more 2 tight end sets? how are they going to use Michael Mayer with a new play caller coming in? Because remember, the previous regime drafted Michael Mayer. Luke Getsy wasn't there when the Raiders drafted Michael Mayer.
Yep.
So I don't know what the plan for Michael Mayer is, but obviously they should, if you're going to draft this guy 13, have a plan for Brock Bowers.
And you guys know my leanings. You know I'm a big Notre Dame fan, and so I loved Michael Mayer. But Michael Mayer, a good player, and I think still could be a very good pro tight end, but he's not Brock Bowers. I'll put it that way. He's just not Brock Bowers. By the way, I got a shout out because the draft is going along as we're talking. I know you guys care about the Raiders, but the Vikings, they get J.J. McCarthy. I know a lot of people don't like J.J. McCarthy, but that's who they wanted. And then they get Dallas Turner, their edge. They've had a nice little draft so far along with Chicago. So it happens and it goes that way. But, I'm seeing people talk about surprising pick and all that kind of stuff. And well, you're saying this. And you got Steven up on X saying the Tom Brady effect. So that rumor is not going to die quite yet.
Tom Brady, we got 2 Gronks for you. Tom Brady.
It'll get louder. It'll get louder. But now he can't own the team and play. So, and the ownership's not done yet. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying I want it to happen. Or I think it happens.
Retirement, by the way. I mean, he didn't rule out unretiring again. By the way. Just saying.
Joe Dawson, Bowers can't block. It's not that he can't block; he can get better at blocking. But he's a capable blocker, but not a great blocker.
The question was, can he block well at his size, weight on the pro level?
Correct, and how you're used in the NFL too, right? It depends. That's the other thing with Mayer. Mayer improved his blocking significantly by the end of last year. So, and then you always have tight ends, your third, fourth tight end who could be just for blocking. So depending on the play and what the formation is, that can be changed out too. So that's the way it goes.
J.A. Patriot. Shout out to J.A. Patriot in the chat.
Yeah, there you go. So we have a bunch of this. You thought the Falcons, what is this one? Oh, Jose, thought the Falcons made the worst pick. For their situation, yes, because I just don't understand it. Like I understand taking Penix in the first round, actually. I thought it might happen later in the round. I just don't understand at 8 when they have needs that they have. But now
the Falcons pick doesn't make sense from a timeline perspective because, as you pointed out earlier, you signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. Now, I know players usually don't play out the full length of their contract. So let's say Kirk Cousins plays for 3 years. So you're going to have Michael Penix on ice for 3 years.
Yeah.
You got Kirk Cousins in there to compete right now.
Right.
That first round pick is usually a guy you want to help you right now. And even with the Raiders pick with Brock Bowers can help the Raiders right now, assuming they have a decent offensive line and serviceable quarterback play. Brock Bowers can help the Raiders at least right now. You're not putting Brock Bowers on ice for 3 years like the Falcons are going to do with Michael Penix. So the Falcons pick to me just I don't understand. I made Michael Penix guy, and I'm happy that he went 8 because he's going to get his money, but he's not. We may not see Michael Penix for another 3 years.
Yeah, and again, Cousins' deal is for 4. So if he played out his full deal, again, we defended, you and I, especially you and your purple do-rag, we defended Penix's age, saying, hey, look, if he comes in, that's fine. His career might be a little shorter, that's fine. But if he's coming in and he's going to compete to start right away, so what? But now if you're sitting 3 or 4 years, then you're 28, almost 29 years old.
And look, you haven't played a regular season snap before.
Correct. And you can talk about guys who had better luck when they got older. I mean, even I'm trying to think of a name off the top of my head. But even guys who come in and kind of succeed later in their life, they've been around, they've had opportunities, and they started when they were younger, and it just took that long to click. But with this one, it's just really interesting. Georgia Patriot, Raider Nation isn't used to BPA picks. Agreed. That's the other thing here. Raider fans haven't seen it, and I think that's also part of the shock. Look, everybody's shocked. Some people are pissed. Some people are happy. Some people are indifferent.
And again, I'm going to say this again for the people that just came in the chat. The Raiders pick is a BPA pick, pure BPA.
Right.
Just throw the position needs and where the positions are out of the window. The Raiders went with the best player available. As I said, that
we have Tech Junkie saying, sorry, BPA is debatable. Then who was the best player available? I'm looking at the list right now. Who went after him? Fuaga, offensive line. Okay. Latau from UCLA, Byron Murphy, Dallas Turner, all positions the Raiders. You could say they didn't need a tight end, yes, but their defensive tackle, they just spent a crap load of money on a defensive tackle, and they have edge, drafted an edge last year, and have Max Crosby. And I know we're saying best player. I don't see a player that's better than Brock Bowers. I mean,
It's all
I respect Tech Junkie's opinion, but I didn't see anybody, again, I didn't see anybody who follows the draft at all, guys I like, guys I don't like, say that he was not a top 10 pick.
right. So I understand what Tech Junkie is saying. Technically, it's debatable because it's an opinion. When you say BPA, it's all an opinion. Your BPA, Scott, may be different than my BPA, may be different from Tech Junkie's BPA. So everyone's going to have a different opinion on what BPA is.
Right.
But what I'm saying, my point is that if you look back at any of these scouting reports that you referred to, the one thing the common thread that I saw in a lot of these Brock Bowers scouting reports is he could be a Pro Bowl player right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't see that in some of these other players that went after him. And this is not me defending the pick. This is just me telling you.
That's just
this
the
is
board.
what this was this discussion around Brock Bowers before he went to the Raiders at 13.
Correct.
Now, I personally felt that, in my opinion, I think Talisi Fuaga will also be, a Pro Bowl or Pro type player. We'll see.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of it is, where do these players go? Because we talk about this player could be a Pro Bowl player. This player is going to be a bust. A lot of it is dictated by your situation. Yeah. I mean, Baker Mayfield was thrown in the toilet bowl 2 years ago. He comes back, leads the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the playoffs, and now everyone's like, well, Baker Mayfield ain't that bad. It's all about, sometimes for most players, it's all about the situation they're in.
Yeah, and Nolan says here Arnold was the best player available. When I met him, the Bengals picked Mims, by the way. It's a good pick for them. They need that help. You look at Terrion Arnold, a guy I really, from a football perspective, fell in love with at the combine, not only because of his play, his ability, but also just a dude, like a good dude off the field. We got to be around him and all that stuff. But even then, he was considered bottom end of the first round guy. Okay. So, and I say bottom end, I'm talking from about 19, 20 down. So I would argue, no, not the best player available, especially cornerback in the NFL versus tight end and the ability that Brock Bowers has. There's no guarantees of any player coming out in the draft, as we all know too vividly in Raider Nation. But Brock Bowers, I think, is much more cornerback. No matter how ready they are to play coming out of college, it still takes time to adjust. And I think that Bowers clearly is a guy who's going to come in and immediately have impact if he's used correctly.
Yeah, I'm not going to pound the table, say crying all over the place, saying it's a bad pick. And I'm not jumping for joy, saying it's a fantastic pick. I would say it was a great value pick. From a value perspective, I think someone said in the chat, from a value perspective, the Raiders got great value out of the pick in terms of where Brock Bowers was ranked on a lot of boards. Like most boards, he was a top 5 to 10 player. I remember before even getting on with you, Scott, before the draft started, Adam Schefter said, Brock Bowers is a top 10 pick. Now he fell slightly outside of that, but most people had Brock Bowers, Chargers, Jets, like he's going to be a top player off the draft board. The Raiders went with BPA. But as I said, I want to see what the plan is now. My question is, what's the plan for Brock Bowers?
Well, and that's it. And we're not going to get a definitive answer. We're going to get, the media will ask that question. There's no doubt, Mo. And we're going to get a little bit, hey, the value is a great player. He can make our team better. What else are you going to tell you? Well, how do you figure using him in the offense? Well, we'll tell you a little bit. We're not going to give everything to you.
Give that to you.
Nate's Journey on YouTube. Could they be working on a big trade with Atlanta? I don't think so, because if the Raiders wanted that and Atlanta was smart, they would have just traded picks and gotten more draft capital. Maybe I could be wrong. It's a good idea, Nate, thinking maybe they're doing it for another reason, because you're trying to justify why they took a tight end when they had other needs. I get it. But I look, I like Penix. I would have never guessed in my wildest dreams that he would be a top 10 quarterback. I thought he could go he could go to the Broncos.
He was a backhand first. Yep.
Yeah, it could go to the Broncos, or like I said, the Rams at 19. So that doesn't surprise me. But again, everybody's in shock a little bit, and you get that. But I do think too that it does set up an interesting situation for, as Indian River points out here, is trenches and cover corners. There's still some good cornerbacks in the second round, in the third round. Mo, I don't know how I can say this anymore. I think they go offensive line in the second, but it depends on who the best player is available, obviously.
I think even I think need is going to play a lot more into the Raiders' decision in the second round because you obviously didn't address the need in the first round,
Right.
and the Raiders clearly have some significant needs. So
Right.
at some point you have to start addressing your needs, and I think they will in the second round. Now whether they go corner or offensive line, we'll see. But after going pure BPA in the first round, you have to go with a need in the second round.
Oh, what is this? Come on. Bowers is Hunter Renfro on steroids? Come on. Hunter Renfro was a third round pick, man. He wasn't a top 10 pick. He
Fifth
wasn't
round
a
pick.
fifth round pick, excuse me. Did I say third? Sorry, fifth
You
round
said
pick. He's not a first round pick. It's a lot big difference, man. Come on. Don't be that upset. I'm just giving you crap. We also have here, Hawkins, the pick makes me stick to my stomach. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know.
I think the
Bowers production.
misnomer, really quick, Scott. The misnomer we got to clear up here is I see some people saying block Bowers can't block, and I don't think that's fair to his collegiate tape. The question is, can he block as well, or become a good blocker on the pro level with his body size and type? As I said, a lot of scouts don't believe he'll be a 250-pound tight end. So does that type of tight end become a complete tight end that's able to block for you? We'll see.
Yeah. Sam A.
But his
Sam,
but
go ahead. Finish.
but his pass catching skills are going to be there for the Raiders.
There you go. If I'm just talking over you, just scream at me, dude. Since
Oh,
we're
you good,
live
you
and we're
good.
just kind of
I'm
rolling
talking
with
too.
the draft.
I'm
here.
talking too much because I'm like
You're not talking too
I'm
much.
just I'm just
Are
super
you kidding
hyped.
me?
Super hyped up for
Sam
Michael
A.
Penix.
We're getting Milton in the fourth. I don't think Milton's a fourth round pick, Sam. I think
he's a fifth
gonna,
or a sixth rounder.
He's a fifth or sixth rounder. Massive project. Yeah.
We'll see.
By the way,
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Sam A. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is a fourth rounder. I
We
think
could
he
be-
goes in the fifth round.
yeah, I'm not telling Sam A. he's completely wrong. I just don't believe it. Now,
No.
I want to bring up
We'll
a
see.
point here because I've seen it in the chat. And it's important and it's self-deprecating at the same time. So I'm not bagging just on any one individual. But listen, all these experts said what? With the you listen to people, you listen to a lot of Raider content creators, and there's a lot of great ones. A lot of great ones, and we're friends with a lot of them. But I will tell you that you had people who inside information, and how did it work out? The bottom line is when it comes to the draft and stuff like this, there's no inside information. The most inside information we got in the last week, because it's all bullshit, excuse me, I had to use the word, for the most part, was right before the draft at 7 o'clock Eastern when the draft went on the air. Ian Rappaport came on and said the Falcons are thinking about taking Penix at 8. That's the closest and most accurate thing we heard all night, right? So just remember when you hear this stuff, and Mo and I will tell you, as people who do this for a living, we are guessing based on information and knowledge that we have. We give you our best guess on what's going to happen and what we think should happen. Doesn't mean we're right, doesn't always mean we're wrong either. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong. So just remember that when you're listening to these folks, you never know, and the Raiders are a great example of that because they chose Brock Bowers. Right? I mean,
I didn't see one mock draft with Brock Bowers to the Raiders.
never.
Not one. Not
Never.
one
A lot
mock
of really
draft.
good guys. A lot of really good guys that
So
I respect.
It's all guessing. And
It's
I
all
tell
guessing.
people all the time.
Absolutely.
Why I sound confident in my picks because I do the research.
Mhm.
There's no amount of research you can do to infiltrate through the walls of 32 team headquarters and know exactly what they're doing. It's based on research, patterns, what teams have done in the past, what you're hearing, the reports that you read, what the rosters look like. You're making the best guess possible.
Right.
And I didn't see not one mock draft of the Raiders taking Brock Bowers. So the surprise factor is definitely on 100 with this one.
Yes.
But I think and I've done this a lot of years. I've been following drafts for as I said, 25, 26 years. What usually happens is people are so emotionally wrapped into the draft pick when it happens. They're either upset, or super happy. And then there's a calming down period. Usually within a week or two, people start to dig through highlights, maybe dig through a little film if they have access to it, maybe talk to some people where that player played at college, and they start to warm up to the pick. Because I remember when the Raiders drafted Tyree Wilson, I was in the Bleacher Report office over in Midtown, and I'm doing a live show, and the Raiders picked Tyree Wilson. And I will tell you, Scott, and people in the chat, 75 of the people in the chat hated the pick. I graded the pick like a BB minus, right? Because of the injury factor. And I feel like he's going to have a slow start. Tyree Wilson's coming off a foot injury. And people hated the pick. By the time we got to the preseason, and by the way, Tyree Wilson had a slow start because of the surgery, a lot of those people start to warm up to the pick. And I will say, like I said about Brock Bowers, is I want to see what the plan is for him, because assuming the Raiders don't trade Michael Mayer, the plan is going to be to have those two guys, Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers, on the field a lot at the same time.
Yes, yes. And again, it goes back to what is the plan here strategically. What are they thinking that they took a tight end in the first round? That's the thing. The critics are going to argue that you should have gone for greater need. We don't know what we don't know, and I know people can come on here and say it was a bad pick, it was this, it was that. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's something there. There was a reason. Not only they didn't just take him because he's the best player available. They took him best player available, and it fits something strategically, Mo, that they want to do. And so, we can talk about it all night. And again, I don't think anybody, no matter what would have happened with this pick, there would have been a percentage of folks who were not happy with it. This is different just because it's so shocking. No one expected this.
I forgot who it was, and I'm sorry that I forgot this person's name. But Scott, if you remember the last show we did where we just took calls from people, there was one caller who said that what matters a lot is about the mentality of this team and Antonio Pierce, that this team is going to be picking players based on, I don't want to say personality, but are they a good fit for what the Raiders are trying to be? And as I said at the top of the show with Antonio Pierce, it's going to be a tough, hard-nosed, punch in the mouth type of team. Correct. And that's the type of player that, in my opinion, Brock Bowers is.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because when Tom Telesco did his pre-draft press conference, where you don't get a lot of insight, but you do get little gems, and maybe he hinted at this because he talked, because there was a question from one of the members of the media about, hey, how much is Antonio Pierce involved? It's his first time as a head coach. And Telesco said very specifically, because I did a story for it up on Sportsnaut, he said that Antonio Pierce knows exactly the kind of guy he wants, exactly this kind of player. Now, I know he verbalizes that sometimes, hard-nosed, but obviously the communication between GM and coach, he knows exactly the type of personality, type of player, physicality, all that stuff that he wants. And I think that was a tip maybe that we missed, which is, now, okay, you could say that about Fuaga too. He's a tough dude on the line, but maybe, just maybe, they're looking at this guy and saying, he was made to be a Raider because of the way he plays, what he brings to the table. And so that's why they go with him. And I think that to your point, you made the great point, which is he knows what he wants. And you can't blame the GM or the coach individually for the pick. They work together to do it. Ultimately, the GM makes the choice. But I do think that he had input there. And this is a guy that, you can see flourishing in the NFL. So we'll have to see. I think it's going to take time for people to warm to it. Also, what they do in the rest of the draft is big, Mo, because we got to see what they do in the second round and then what they do in the third round. Particularly, those two rounds are very, very important. And then past that, remember, Max Crosby, a fourth-round draft pick.
Yeah. Nothing to add to that, Scott. It's just... It's another pick that is going to get talked about among Raider Nation for a while, because it's once again the pick that no one thought about.
Right.
Even I'm not on X as much as I used to be, but the discourse was quarterback, offensive line, cornerback, and then there were some people who said don't sleep on the Raiders getting a defensive lineman like Byron Murphy II,
right,
to just to build a complete bully on defense, but. This is the pick that didn't really get talked about. I didn't see one tweet to say, hey, what Brock Bowers falls? Well, I will say that when I was on Bleacher Report Live, one person did ask me, hey, if Rome Odunze falls to the Raiders at 13, what do they do?
Yeah.
And I straight out told him, I said, if Rome Odunze falls at 13, you got to take him. He's just too good to pass up in that spot. It's not the biggest need. Devontae Adams, on the other side of 30. Jacoby Myers is the number 2. Trey Tucker is still coming along. You just can't pass on Rome Odunze at 13. So I think the Raiders took that same mentality with Brock Bowers. Is he's just too good to pass up at 13.
Yes. So Jermaine Willis, he's an elite weapon, tight end, slot, fullback. Imagine Bowers. I'm slot, and Jacob Adams at wide receiver, and Mayer at tight. Yeah, no, that's what we're talking about. I think that's the thing is you look at the opportunity. It gives, to your point, it gives Luke Getsy a lot to work with.
Is he creative enough to use
That's
that's going to be the thing, because you can have those great weapons, but is your offensive coordinator, your offensive play caller creative enough to get the most out of those players?
Gianluca, my friend over in Italy, says this looks like a typical Jets pick. Tell him, Mo, it's not a Jets pick.
I mean, the Jets have made some questionable picks over the years. I would say that Joe Douglas has made, outside of Zach Wilson, he's made some pretty good picks. Elijah Vera Tucker, a lot of people question that pick. Olufashano this year, I think, is a good pick for them because Tyron Smith doesn't, he doesn't play a full season.
Yeah.
We're not here to talk about the Jets because then people would accuse me of being a Jets fan.
Of course.
But it's, again, I said this to someone before the draft started, right? The Raiders, when it comes to some draft surprises, good or bad, good, again, I said it earlier, it goes together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yes, and I'll tell you here, too, my good friend Ed Marshall up in Alaska, more worried about Getsy than the weapons, and that's what you brought up.
And that's what I just brought up. It's not, to me, it's about, is Getsy creative enough to utilize or maximize that pick? Because if Getsy's not creative enough to get Brock Bowers involved, then it's a wasted pick. Then you have a guy with Pro Bowl potential that you're not using to his fullest potential. Yes. I have questions about Getsy. I had questions about Getsy when the Raiders hired him. I still do. Hopefully he proves me wrong.
Yes. It was, the hiring, it was sort of like a fart in church. I mean, let's face it. That's how a lot of people, I'm not saying he can't work out. I'm just saying it was like after Cliff Kingsbury was in, then out, all that kind of stuff. Our in-house comedian, AJ DeMello, I started following the Raiders every game in 2004, and the Raiders still yet to have a star quarterback. It's unbelievable, yet so believable at the same time. Who's drinking? Yes, they didn't address the quarterback. And there was
you weren't really quick, 13th. Scott.
Yeah,
with 6 quarterbacks coming off the board in the first 12 picks, you weren't going to pick. I know AJ wasn't saying this, but for the people saying, what about the quarterback now? You weren't going to pick Spencer Rattler at 13.
Yes,
you just no, not going to happen. Now the Raiders like Spencer Rattler, and I've said this over and over again. I think Spencer Rattler is a wild card quarterback option for the Raiders. You're probably taking him on day 2. You're not taking him at 13.
Yes.
But at this point, you're probably looking at a if the Raiders do draft a quarterback, a guy who's going to need some time to develop. And I would say right now you're looking at Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew starting at quarterback. And I don't know how that makes you feel, Raider Nation, for the people in the chat, how great or how optimistic you are about Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell being decent quarterbacks. But I will say, Gardner Minshew played well in some bad football teams. Not last year because the Colts had a decent squad. They overachieved, almost made the playoffs, but C.J. Stroud is great. Yep. But when Gardner Minshew was playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, those teams were at the bottom of the division. I believe one of those teams that Gardner Minshew played on was 1-15.
Yeah.
But he still had decent passing numbers. So if you're looking at it from a quarterback perspective, what do they do at quarterback? They have a couple of guys who can be serviceable. But as AJ pointed out, I know fans are looking for that star quarterback. But at 13, that player wasn't there based on how the board fell.
Yeah, and I think that, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Joe Hedrick and get his question in. Super chat for $5, which of course goes to the One Nation Foundation, our friends over at Raiders Fan Radio, supporting Raiders charities. Joe says, doesn't this make us a slower team? 2 tight ends, DA, GM, and a wide receiver keeps Trey on the sidelines, no speed. Well, that's what I said earlier, a little bit.
It goes back to my point.
Mm-hmm.
How creative can Luke Getsy be with his offensive play design?
Right.
Can he get these guys all in the field where they're all getting the rock and they're all producing in their roles?
Yep.
Because if you're telling me that Kyle Shanahan is molding this offense, then I would be super confident because Kyle Shanahan is known to be, a creative offensive mind. If you're telling me Kevin O'Connell is molding this offense, I like what Kevin O'Connell has done with Minnesota, I would say, okay. Yeah. You might have something there. If you tell me Bobby Slowick from Houston is molding his offense, what he's doing with Houston, I would say, okay, may have something.
Yeah.
But Luke Getsy's track record is a bit
dicey.
Yeah. So I'm waiting to see what the plan is.
Yeah. Yeah. I listen, I think that I see a lot of chat in here about quarterbacks in second round. I don't think the Raiders are going to go offense with their first 2 picks. I mean, we didn't think they'd do it with their first pick. You do?
Yeah, I mean, the first one, Brock Bowers, second one, an offensive lineman.
Oh, yeah, offensive lineman. I'm talking about either a receiver
Oh,
or
a
a
skill
quarterback.
player.
That's why I think they're out on quarterbacks, because if you're going to get a quarterback, maybe in the 3rd round, 4th round, or later, and that's not, to me, a guy you're looking and saying, hey, this guy's going to lead us to the Super Bowl. It's a 1st round type quarterback or a 2nd round type quarterback that's going to get you there. Again, anything can happen, guys, but a lot of people were talking about, don't take a quarterback in the 1st round because the failure rate's so high. Well, when you get past the 1st round, it's even higher. So the chances of hitting on that, very slim.
I'm just gonna say it, put it out there into the universe. Don't sleep on Spencer Rattler.
In the 2nd round?
I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders picked up Spencer Rattler in the 2nd or 3rd round.
Yeah,
it would not surprise me.
That has been a lot of chatter, right? You've seen that out there too.
There was a lot of buzz around him after the Senior Bowl, right? So a lot of people got around Spencer Rattler to talk to him, and how did you mature from your days, at Oklahoma, transition to South Carolina with the Gamecocks. A lot of people liked. I got the feeling that he knocked it out of the park when it came to his interviews and just interacting with teams and people, media. And there was a lot of buzz around Spencer Rattler, and there was some talk that maybe he could go in the 2nd round. And again, the way things went with the draft board, it wouldn't surprise me if Spencer Rattler goes in the 2nd round. It wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders picked him up in the 2nd round.
Yes,
I'm not saying that's the pick, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And Jewett Dawson bringing up Brady was drafted in 6th. You can't bring up Brady, man. I mean, how many?
Yeah, just bring up the best quarterback in a lot of people's generations. You just get a Tom Brady. Tom Brady's just come all along every year.
Right. Find me how many 6th round or later draft picks have won a Super Bowl or even started for a long time in the NFL. This doesn't happen that often. It happened with Tom Brady, but that's Tom Brady.
Right. You just can't say, hey, look at the outlier, and that's your blueprint.
And you can't dismiss anybody. I get that 100%. You can't. But it's just the likelihood is very, very, very slim.
Right. You're not drafting that player expecting him to be your guy. You're drafting him and saying, okay, we see something in him. Maybe he develops into something, maybe not. But we'll draft him to the 6th round and see what happens. You're not saying, well, we're drafting him in the 6th round. We're expecting him to be Tom Brady. Like that. That's not
Gil Stevens says, relax. What round was Max Crosby? Max Crosby's a defensive end. He's not a quarterback. Different positions. You can find plenty of examples of guys 2nd, 3rd, 4th round who went on to have amazing NFL careers. Not so much from the quarterback position. There are some, but there are not a ton of them. So we'll see.
Quarterback position is a tough position to play in the National Football League.
Even more than now. But anyway, so that's going to do it. Listen, Mo and I got to get out of here because we got stuff to write for our prospective employers. But we wanted to get on here, and we appreciate just great chat here. And I know everybody was in the same position that we were. We're like, huh, what? And we got on the air just in time for the pick to happen. My TV was slow. So Mo had the pick for me before the TV showed me. That's why I didn't believe him. And I'm sure all of you were like, what are you talking about? Brock Bowers? Brock Bowers? No. But anyway, so we appreciate you guys being with us here on Silver and Black today. Of course, we are an Odyssey Sports original podcast. So if you don't already subscribe here on the YouTube channel, wherever you're watching us, make sure you do that. Hit that notifications bell so you know every time we have a new video. Also, if you don't already subscribe on the audio version, please do so for us. You can get it wherever you get your audio. We will be back early next week when the draft is over. We'll be able to go through all of the picks as we do every Tuesday, Thursday, and then during the season, of course, we're 3 or 4 times a week. But we'll be back on Tuesday to go through the entire draft, where we'll give you our view and get your opinion on what the Raiders have done. And maybe we'll go live at some point this weekend. We'll see. I don't know. It depends. We got a lot of work to do. But if we can, we will. If not, we will see you guys on Tuesday. We thank you for being there. Mo, I know you got some stuff coming up. You got something tomorrow, right?
Yes. Everyone in the chat, if you want to hang out with me tomorrow night while the Raiders are making their picks in the 2nd and 3rd round, I'm going to be on for the entire 2nd and 3rd rounds over at Bleacher Report. I'll be on with a Chargers writer speaker. I'll be on with a Chiefs writer speaker. And I'll be on with a Broncos writer speaker. So you'll be able to talk your trash in the chat as I chastise them about their picks. They chastise me about the Raiders picks. It's going to be a fun time. It'll be between 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, through the end of the 3rd round. So join me for that. We're going to have a lot of fun.
And I love Raider Nation. Has been so good to me since I've been doing this show over 7+ years. And so when Joe H puts up, I'm sure there's more disappointments to come. It makes me feel bad because I know it seems funny, but I understand it because everybody's passion so high, and everybody just wants to win. They want things to go their way. They want things to happen, and so when there's surprises, people feel unsettled. But I would say hold your horses on this one. We'll see what the Raiders are able to do. A lot of good things happen in the second, third round, and even the fourth round, as someone mentioned earlier with Max Crosby. So hang in there, and we'll see. But we will be back on Tuesday to talk to you about it. For our producer, Mike Robier, for Moton, I am Scott Gulbransen. This has been a special edition of Silver and Black Today. The Raiders, first round, Brock Bowers, the tight end out of Georgia. Yes, I didn't misspeak. That is true. You're not in La La Land. This is fact. That's where they are. We'll see what they do, and we'll talk to you guys next week.